My video manual for the Minolta X-370. I picked it up for $10 at a store. Um, it was originally released in 1984. It uses two LR44 batteries, which are easy to find and pretty cheap. It's a fully manual focus camera with aperture priority and manual mode. It also has electronic shutter. So this kind of camera kind of falls into between two eras, between the classic old 35 millimeter SLRs, the big ones, and then the newer, higher technology ones in the 90s. And this camera is kind of it's not very valuable, but if you do have this camera, this video manual should help you out a lot. So this would be a pretty great starter camera, and I think the average price on this should be around $10 to $15. I wouldn't pay more than that for the body on this camera. So on the top, you're going to see that it has a lot of things going on. It has an on and off switch, and you're going to need to use the on and off switch because it has an electronic shutter. On the bottom of the camera, you're going to see the battery port and the film rewind release. It also has some extra things for a motor drive, which it also you could also get with it at the time this camera came out. So how do you set your ISO? On the top of the camera, you're going to hold down this button and then turn the dial. And it actually has a really good ISO range from 3200 all the way to 12. And you're just going to turn it left and right just like that. So how do you attach your lens? To attach your lens is pretty easy. You're going to hold down that button and then twist to the left to pull off the lens. The easiest way to get the lens back on is to line up the red dots and then turn to the right, and you're going to hear a clicking noise when it's in. To load the film, you're going to find the film rewind knob. And I have a little bit of a problem finding it right here, but I eventually find it. And then you're just going to pull up on the film rewind knob, and it's going to release the back. Once the back is released, you're going to place your film in upside down and pull the film to the right. There's some catches in the spool, so it's pretty easy to get in. And once it's in, you're going to make sure that it's tight, and then you're just going to close the back. You then want to push down the film rewind knob and just advance it once. So how do you shoot with this camera? First of all, you're going to turn it on because it has an electronic shutter and won't take any pictures without battery power or the on switch being on. To set the aperture is actually set on the lens, and I think at the time I bought this camera, the lens is probably worth a little bit more than the camera itself. And then that's the focusing dial right there. To set the speed, there's auto, and then there's 1000 all the way to bulb mode. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the auto setting a little later. So once you have your film speed set, you're then going to want to advance the film and then hit the shutter. You're going to see there's a film counter to the right of the film advance. So what about the viewfinder? The viewfinder, two important things to know. First of all, A is when to know if you're in auto or manual mode, and that is by that shutter dial. Also, two things you want to look at are that B and D bullets. B means your photo is overexposed, and D means your photo is underexposed. It'll still let you take the picture, but it's giving you a warning inside the viewfinder. They'll be flashing. So that's just a good little check to make sure that your film, that you should always make sure it's not in those B or D. So when you're done shooting, you're going to want to remove your film. There's a film rewind release on the bottom, and then you're just going to turn the film rewind clockwise. When you're done, you're going to want to pull up on the film rewind knob, and then it should release the back. So there's two more small things about this camera on the front, two more functions. There's a self timer and an auto exposure lock, and they're both the same thing. They're both a little dial right there. When you pull up, it's a self timer, and when you hold down, it's the auto exposure lock. And if you're wondering what auto exposure lock is, auto exposure lock means that if you know that the photo you're going to take is underexposed or overexposed, you can go to a certain part of that photo and expose it correctly, then hit the auto exposure lock, and then it'll keep that exposure. So then you can take the right picture at the right exposure. Hey, so thanks for watching this manual.